good tip is to go from above and get lots of light.
When did your love affair with art begin? I'm not sure. It was when I was about 5 or 6. I always woke up really early to watch cartoons. But one day I woke up about 4 a.m. and back then television stations shut down at night. So I couldn't get anything on TV. I found loads of colouring pencils and drew my own cartoons. I drew a fruit bowl so that I could use all the colours in the box. We had a mini
thing for me
exhibition,
here is that I've never
and
really
my
seen
mum
everything
proudly
like this
stuck it on the
together.
fridge.
You know, everything's been in boxes or storage or maybe up in a wall somewhere, but not in the context of everything being together. So
I'm gonna pop this little funny thing on here that says maybe please dim the lights, and I believe that she'll play upon her own volition gracefully. Thank you.
Table 1 row selected, brightness and contrast. Table 1 row selected, brightness and contrast. iMovie HD has new window.
So it's to a film called Polar Pan where I began, a film that's instant at hand, of no certainties how, as if I, torn from a branch of a fallen star, was lent to grant one's affording hearts that are held between the hands of an ardent followers, no matter where you are. In the beginning, kin to the moss in the garden that I lie, I, like a bird, is one who sees life from a different perspective in sun spirit song. I'm freely bound, a young traditional tribal by choice, mystical as time develops through the conscious decision towards stillness. Is mine objective nothingness so to fall and flicker by light? Among homeward marching metalheads getting kissed by the sun upon a path that's deemed to elate in spirit to stimulate. I'm vibrant among their cullen calls, my gleeful epiphany to whistle like child. Among the delicacy of the packaging.
Briefly, if there was any about conscious decision to package the Stones and Beatles,
right,
and then going to talk about the Sex Pistols and sex.
Right, yeah. Yeah, go on, what do you want me to lead?
About fashion packaging.
Well,
was it consciously done for the Beatles, and then did you consciously do it for the Sex Pistols?
I think that it wasn't a conscious package with either group. I think that with respect to the Beatles, they were obviously aware at that time the image became very, very important. It was something that everybody could lock into. It was something that people could talk about. I think that the key with fashion in rock and roll's success in terms of promoting various singers or groups was the fact that it's much more exciting to read about the group's image than to read about the group's music. You don't really want to read words that talk about the music. It's not interesting. The music is a given. If you haven't got the music, forget it anyway. So, in those days, they began to realize that what kids wanted to talk about was what they stuck up on their wall, which was the look of Elvis Presley, the big colour group photograph of the Rolling Stones, and these giveaways that now and again appeared in various pop magazines and Fleet Street journals and whatever journals existed in America were the early days really of merchandising rock and roll, and fashion photography and grooming suddenly started to loom on the horizon as groups began to kept themselves. Makeup was always used on male performers, I think right back to Elvis Presley. But it became more flagrant. You'd flaunt it. You'd even perpetrate the idea of it as a style to look different. So you'd exaggerate it and you'd walk down the street with it. And groups like the Kinks, I think the Rolling Stones, as years rolled by, they changed. They became more chameleon and took on whatever was, tougher and more, whatever was more happening at that moment in terms of image making. And it obviously must have triggered a great deal of people who were in the rock and roll industry, from the record company's point of view, that they had to start selling the group by its look as much as by its music. Well, that was going to be very difficult, simply because they hadn't been trained in this way. They trained to hear a note that's in tune, a note that's out of tune, a rhythm, a harmony, a lyric. They could relate all this to music in the past, but they weren't hairdressers, they weren't tailors. It seemed extremely effeminate, and they in fact disliked it. It was difficult. And I think that they had a very uneasy time dealing with it, and ultimately left it to managers. That's what happened, I think.
Now, let's go on to you and the Sex Pistols.
Teddy Boys existed before they saw Bill Haley. Teddy Boys just...
With speed.
Ready? Any thoughts on the formal fashions of Motown, like Diana Ross and Martha Reeves, where they wore their ball gowns and evening dresses? I mean, was Berry Gordy, trying to create a specific look, or just trying to make them more palatable to white audiences?
Well, I don't really know Berry Gordy, and so I don't really quite know what he was thinking. My impressions are, and it's easy to have impressions in retrospect, were that that was the style of the day, as I explained earlier, in terms of Christian Dior's La Belle Époque remodeled. And they saw it as something that really gave these young girls a great sense of decency, respect, importance, glamour. They wouldn't want them to be dressing in tracksuits or whatever was the kind of style that you would have gone to school in at the time, or the kind of style, if you were out at school, you would have gone down to the running track or the bowling alley. They wanted them to dress as if you were at an all-night party and you had nothing else to do but party, party, party. And they all looked like they were coming from a big party, and they looked like they were going off to another one. It was that eternal festive spirit, almost this Cinderella dream, the constantly going to the ball. They all looked like they were off to some great ball with their chiffons in the pastel creams and pinks and greens and blues and big bows all done up, and well, it was, if you you look in a Dior sketchbook of the 50s, you'll see the role models of which those dresses were made from, and that was it. It was the everlasting ball. Well, La Belle Epoque, that's what it was called, La Belle Epoque, the naughty 90s.
Well, moving along from there then, we'll go into the Beatles, so the next big influence here.
I'll go around the outside. To me, but just a year later I decided I've got to be back where I am. I've got to see what's happening. I hadn't been in New York for a year. I arrived. I took these guys for a walk to the office central place, Times Square, 42nd Street, where the peep shows took place. These street corners, all these guys with this huge new double tape players, better known as ghetto blasters now. Spinning on his head on every street corner to music they were playing. Acting with a little trepidation, and with these two guys from London, I was wondering what was happening, because every time police or something, because they changed their three-card Montreal into ghetto blaster, rapping, dancing, as the police moved by. We're saving up, we're collecting money because we have a radio show, we have to pay for this and the other. I said, okay, they said, why don't you just tune in, 105.9 FM. He said, you tune in tonight, we'll be on it. We're called the world famous Supreme Team. We find it and these guys come on, and Gary was so superb and so typically British. It was there, ready to press the green button and records this show off the radio. This show would become the foundation for the record known as Gary and travel home, going to get back to London and take them with them and record in London. These guys were a little resistant. I said, look, don't worry. He said, yeah, but they don't have the record decks, they were worried there was nothing in this far distance place called England that could provide them with all the necessary infrastructure for them to do their thing. So we tried to fill in the calendar when the Supreme Team could come to London and give them a chance to get their passports together, etc., and they would be paid handsomely. To give you a simple story about Buffalo Girls, which kind of tells the story of how this whole album was put together. Well, so the Supreme Team would share the platform with me. I would do the simple square dance call, Buffalo Girls, go round the outside, round the outside. Buffalo Girl, go around the outside, round the outside, round the outside. And I wrote a little break for them, who Buffalo Girls were, and how pity she's so dirty, she's only dancing to be friendly. Round the outside. And with that, with the Zulu cry, with these great beats, world's famous Supreme Team provided, we would have the basis to set it round. Radio show fully recorded. Songs we'd taken from KwaZulu-Land and everywhere else. We had the basis for it. That's
Basquiat's work looks so chaotic. So it's like you can draw from that whatever you want to. And it's sort of like when someone draws 3 lines on a piece of paper and sticks it in the museum, it's like, oh, you're staring at 3 lines. And I'm like, it's just 3 lines on a piece of paper, but because so-and-so